Boozed and Bothered on occasion may contain content that readers and listeners find offensive or distasteful. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast or on the articles on the website are solely those of the individual authors, speakers, and or guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of Boozed and Bothered as a whole or the views of any of Boozed and Bothered's affiliate or parent companies and organizations. Enjoy the show.
I don't think I've ever taken a 45-minute nap. I think it's always like hours.
Yeah, my naps.
And then I'm like, fuck. Because I always have the intention, like I set a 2-hour alarm because I know it takes me a while to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I sleep right through that alarm. Or I wake up and I turn that alarm off, don't remember doing that, and I go right back to bed.
Yeah. No,
I have done that.
my naps are usually like 3 hours long. You know, I'll lie down at like 2 in the afternoon. I'll wake up at like 5.
At what point is it just like officially a slumber?
I think it's like 4 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people who don't sleep much will sleep for 4 hours a night. I think so. I think that counts as a sleep. You know, my dad did that a lot. He'd get home around 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And eat, or sometimes he'd just eat before he came home. He always eats out a lot, or did anyway. And then he'd sit on the couch and just watch TV. You know, he'd turn on MSNBC
and just doze
or CNN, and he'd watch for like an hour or two. It's either like CNN, MSNBC, or like sports highlights. Right? He'd be watching ESPN.
Right.
You know, and then and my dad, you know, he likes to. He's like every Filipino. He talks to the television, so you know, not the way my mom does, right? Because my mom would just be like, she'd say full sentences, like telling the people to do stuff,
right?
And my dad's just, you know, and my dad, you know,
I don't know that that's a Filipino thing. I think we all do that.
Is that
at least at some point?
I don't do that. I mean, I talk like something. Oh my God. Or you know, things like that.
I do side commentary. I'm notorious for watching the news and just like shaking my head and going,
yeah,
Jesus,
yeah, but
don't do it.
You know, yeah. No, but my dad's more. My dad's more. You know, he'll sit back the way he does. You know, is very relaxed, stoic, and head kind of cocked, just slightly, and you know, and just, and he's looking. You know, he's older now, so he's looking down his glasses. You know, and at the TV, and he's, yeah. Jeez. And then he'll, you know, and then when he wants to shift, he never really shifts his body. He'll just cock his head the other way.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then eventually he's asleep, and his face is in the same position. His face doesn't shift from an awake face to a sleeping face, except for his eyes closing. You know, because when my dad watches TV, his mouth hangs open, and I think we all do something weird, you know, because your brain kind of shuts. Scientific prep.
Or you
studies.
have like that like standby mode.
Yeah, you go into standby mode, right? Your brain just shuts off and it's just absorbing whatever what is going on, and so he's looking down at his glasses and his mouth's hanging open like this. You know, like he's in a forever thought until the television turns off. He does that when he's reading too. I used to go to, when I was younger, I used to go to the donut shop with him in the morning. Sometimes, if I was still awake, or if I had just by chance woken up early, which is rare. And when he'd pull out the paper, and so he'll open up the paper, and look down his glasses, and then his mouth is hanging open.
Mm-hmm.
Just in this thought. It looks like, I'm assuming it's thinking. It looks like thinking.
I'm trying to think about how my parents watch TV. I feel like my parents just sit there like closed mouth and like. I feel like, well, it depends on what we're watching. Like, if it's the news, I can distinctly remember my mom just, like, giving, like, an effortless glare. Like, she just glares, like... with, like, even if she agrees with what's being said on the news or she doesn't find it disagreeable in any way, she just, like, stares at it and, like, like, she's staring it down.
My parents have never found the news disagreeable. Ever. But that's because they watch, like, very biased news stations.
Well, I mean, I think everybody
my grandpa, not grandpa, I mean, we call him grandpa, but my great uncle, you know, he watches, you know, he's in the other room watching Fox. And my parents, you know, in the family room, polar opposite watching MSNBC. So, you've got, I don't even know who the fuck is on Fox anymore.
Yeah, it's not their America's most trusted name and news team that they had. Like
Hannity's gone.
Hannity's not gone.
No? Okay. Yeah, Hannity's there.
Yeah.
O'Reilly's Combs
gone.
is gone because it was Hannity and Combs.
Well, Combs is dead.
Right. That's a thing.
R.I.P. He was so much fun.
He was actually, Combs was hilariously fun. So yeah, like Hannity will be on, right? And then if you stand in the foyer, it's kind of fun because you've got Hannity coming into one ear and like Rachel Maddow, and it's almost like they're on the same station because like political arguments on those stations, they just talk over each other. They don't have a conversation.
No, they yell a lot.
They just yell.
They do. Rachel Maddow does that thing with her pen where she just tinkers it a little bit, or she points it at the camera.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing that you say about this, especially with like kind of the mirror opposite thing, is that Sean Hannity does the exact same thing. And it's like they're best friends that don't agree on anything, but they have like the same mannerisms.
Yeah.
And
they're so alike.
They approach their preferred stories the exact same way. And
that's amazing. I never saw that.
It's so funny because she does that. She does that thing. You guys can't see it because
But she leans in. She puts her elbow up.
The elbow
is on the table.
Hits the table, and the pen goes in a parallel to the table form.
Yeah. And her body's cocked and her head's straight up. So her head is essentially cocked because her body's cocked.
And she's looking into your eyes through the camera lens, and you can feel like her trying to connect to you. And Hannity does the exact same thing.
He does.
And it's the funniest thing to flip back and forth between MSNBC and Fox. I don't think pens are allowed at CNN.
Yeah. Well, they're boring.
They are really boring.
They're so boring.
I don't know. I think CNN.
I think the most fun CNN is for me is Wolf Blitzer, just because of his distinct face. Like, it's very distinctive. I see it on the internet. That's Wolf Blitzer.
That he reminds me of, and I can never think of who it is. But it's
Anderson Cooper's fun when he's not on CNN. When he's on like talk shows, he's fun.
When I was a kid, I always swore I swore up and down that Wolf Blitzer was the guy who played the founder and the grandpa in Jurassic Park.
Oh my God. He's like a tall, slender version.
Yes, but I swore they were the same person. And I was like, for the longest time, I don't even think I realized that they weren't until I was like well into my 20s. I just assumed that
because when you're a kid,
I just assumed he switched careers.
Because when you're a kid, you pick a thought and you emblazon it into your mind. And you don't let it go until someone shakes it out of you, or until you have an aha moment, like when you're 45 years old,
No, think about it. You have to think about it right now. I'm not wrong.
No, I know you're not wrong.
They have to at least be brothers.
Or cousins,
No, they have to be brothers.
There's a relation.
Yeah.
You know who I found? Who is it? Marilyn Manson's related to someone in the Senate. I found this out recently. I can't remember who.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. Okay, Amy Schumer is like second cousins with Chuck Schumer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but they've got the same last name, right? So that's an easy connection to me. There's someone, and it's not that surprising because of that. There's someone in the Senate.
Well, they're both kind of sleazy.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a resemblance.
Yeah. No, okay. I'll agree with that.
Am I wrong?
No, I said I'll agree with that. But there's someone.
You just sound like you're hesitating on giving me the W there, okay? It's true.
I had to laugh first. No. It's like his second cousin or someone, but it's Marilyn Manson's. But yeah, I don't know. It's a politician. But yeah, it's.
Well, Marilyn Manson was always very political.
He was.
And now that I'm older, I respect at least. I don't think I understood what his music was about when I was a kid and he was putting it out.
I think the older I get, I actually like his music.
Yeah,
Like I'll hear it and I'll be like,
because you're hearing it for like the first time with like a much more like
with a cognitive mind,
yeah,
you know, and I'll hear it. I'm like, man, this is good. I don't usually listen to music like this, but this is good. Who is this? And I'm like, oh my god, this is Marilyn Manson.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you know, he
And
has
even-
very distinct songs like his remake of Sweet Dreams.
Right. Well, I mean, there's also like, I think even watching him in like old interviews, like old interviews, there's so much more. It's funny because he's playing in these interviews. He plays
Yeah.
them all because all they see is the makeup and the getup and everything like that. But there's like a real intelligence that he's working with, and
He's smart. He's a smart guy.
well, he's incredibly intelligent, but they're just the manipulation of his surroundings and kind of allowing I don't know if it's a stage presence or a statement. I don't know what the more accurate term would be, but just allowing that to direct the narrative and how it manipulates the people interviewing him. It shows like a real shallowness, and that was part of the act, is that he was putting them on the spot and displaying their shallowness.
Yeah.
And, you know, I guess like as a youngster or whatever, a young adult, you kind of want to believe that you understand what he's saying or doing.
Because you want to be edgy.
And I don't know if my friends were just far more intelligent than I was. That's also possible. But I always just assumed, as I hit everything, I always just assumed that that's what he was doing, but I never really understood it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's truly fascinating to go back and watch some of those old interviews. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. Enough about my freight train of a subject that wandered off. How was your day?
Alexa, Matt, and I did a movie day today. We did a movie and day drinking, so I've already been boozy.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. How was it? I Tanya, right?
I, Tanya, and Girls Trip. We started with Girls Trip.
So you saw 2 movies today.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
because I remember I messaged you and you said you were finishing out the movie. I didn't message back because I'm like, well, I don't want him to turn his phone back on. But I remember thinking to myself, wow, they got started late.
Yeah, no, we started with Girls Trip, which, by the way, had us rolling and crying like we called Shauna, and we were both like on the verge of tears. And Matt even found it hilarious. And I mean, of course it's billed as like a typical chick flick or whatever like that, but with like a black female focus. But I mean, anybody who has like a core group of friends, especially friends that have like very different dynamics and the challenges of like growing up and growing out of those friend groups and how those can kind of become strained and then pull back together. And
sure,
anybody in those situations can relate to it. And we were crying, we were laughing hysterically. That movie is great. And I, Tanya, I think blew us all away.
Really?
Yeah, it was just
because Margot Robbie plays Tanya Harding, right?
And she produced it.
Wow.
And I mean, there were.
What's up with the actors? They're like technologically advanced. They're just doing all the things. Like,
well, I mean, this.
Back then they started with one thing, and then they eventually Margot Robbie just.
Yeah,
I'm here and I'm doing shit.
Yeah, she's totally in it to win it. And I mean, the movie's great, and the thing about I've never been like the theater fan.
Yeah,
I really don't like stage plays that much, but it felt like a stage play on screen, not in like the hokiness, but in kind of the breaking down of, and we talked about this a lot throughout it, kind of amongst ourselves, but
yeah,
they break the fourth wall and they do it intentionally.
Really?
Like there are moments where like they'll freeze and the actor will turn and like give like a sentence to the audience, and it's not distracting. It's so intriguing, and it like brings you in a little bit. But some of the like Alexa was saying that you'll never see a more real house in any movie or any show or anything like that. Like there's never been a better depiction of a living space.
Right.
And it's so confining and so I don't know, it's so claustrophobic. And even the cinematography, like it felt like the 90s. And the movie is so great, and it takes so many turns, and you know what happens, but I don't know. It was an enjoyable day. We liked it very much. Other than that, I mean, it was just us hanging out, and in between movies, we took breaks and kept drinking, and we got some lunch, and then continued on. But it was a great day.
Nice. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Oh. So kind of, I don't know if it's the start of the year, but the news weeks are generally quiet right now.
I think it's just, well, one, a whole lot of stuff is not happening, but a whole lot of weird stuff is happening, I think.
Yeah. That's true. Like really weird things.
And I mean, not to make it like a movie segue or anything like that, but I mean, I, Tonya had like its uncomfortable moments, and I think the news is giving us some uncomfortable moments this week as well. And it's just, there's like, some of the things in the movie came kind of like out of nowhere. Like,
Okay.
the domestic abuse
Yeah.
was heavily prevalent between Tonya Harding and her mom, who's played by Allison Janney. And by the way, who is always phenomenal in everything, and in this movie specifically very terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
But like the hits that Tonya takes in this movie, there's some out of the blue, stuff going on in the real world.
Yeah.
In current times.
So this piece from Como, which is actually a Seattle news organization, state Senate votes to take Alabama out of marriage business.
Oh, this one. Well, I mean, come on. Is Seattle really going to resist passing up making any southern state look more sexist, racist, or homophobic? Be honest.
No, that's, welcome to the West Coast.
They've done this before, though. I mean, it's an overwhelming vote in favor of the bill to remove marriage licenses from like state authority or whatever. But I mean,
I'm for that.
I don't know. Like, I think the thing is that like people who are, against this bill for the reasons of like calling it homophobic and everything, it might be, but there's also an interesting position to take where the state doesn't have a say in marriage. And this becomes a private agreement between people. And I think that it's really interesting because in most civil rights movements, they seem to go in the direction where it becomes state authorization, but it always started out, every single one of them, whether it's for racial civil rights, for blacks and African Americans, however you want to say that term, the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, the many phases of feminism and the many different eras that developed their own take on feminism and equally on civil rights, the gay rights movement, it always starts off as demanding separation from state authority. And it always ends up going to state authority.
Right.
They want recognition and empowerment within the muscle of the state. And it's kind of a weird ask for, I think, when you go from saying you don't want the state to restrict marriage to saying that you want the state to recognize specific types of marriage. I don't know if I disagree or agree. I think that there's a valid point to like equal protection under the law, and that people need to be, one marriage shouldn't be more or less equal to another type of marriage. I think that there's obvious validity to that. The Supreme Court seems to think there is, so there we go. But what does marriage mean if it doesn't have state approval? And I don't think that we're going to dig into that question too deeply, but I also think it should be considered. What is marriage if the state doesn't approve of it, or if the state doesn't recognize it?
I mean, you go back. If you go back way back, it wasn't.
Well, I mean,
There was it didn't start out as an institution like the way we have it today. It was very personal.
Okay.
A long time ago. I mean, before our grandparents were twinkles in our great grandparents' eyes, you know, and further.
But I mean, what is the point of marriage? I'm asking because I'm not married, but at the same time,
You're asking the wrong guy.
I know, because you're not married either. But what is the point of a marriage if it's something beyond a commitment to another person?
Forever, or the rest of their lives anyway.
Right. If it's something beyond a personal commitment to each other and something much more legal and more, in book form, then how can you uphold that? Because a lot of people, I mean, even if there's a failing in the marriage, you're making it a legal issue for the state. And we have divorce court.
Yeah.
It's not just marriage licenses. It's the full shebang of what the state say in marriage is and isn't. And I think that dissolving that say, even if it comes from a bigoted place,
is a net win.
I don't know if it's a net win because I don't think this is going to become law. I mean, they've done this a few times and it hasn't.
So this is tough because when discussing laws, you have layers, right?
Well, and there's a lot of layers built onto marriage law.
Right. And so, for instance, Matt and Kristen, right? They talk about one of the main reasons they got married was because of like hospital visits. Because they were kind of about the marriage idea, but it's just like if let's say you're in the hospital and you're in a coma.
Right.
Right. Are you the husband? No. Well, no. I mean, we have a child together, and but if that was the case, right, and
so
you can't get in.
So if the state magically has the ability to say this person has a right to see,
yes.
How? Well, first of all, I don't even understand where the state. I mean, if a hospital says no and challenges that, is the state going to send like troopers down to like escort the husband in?
We've seen them do it for less.
I mean, but in all reality, like is some patrol officer going to get off? Like, who's going to enforce that?
Right, the hospitals apparently.
I mean, there's the threat of force behind it that this person has to be allowed in or whatever. But what are the consequences of not? I mean, all that I can imagine happening is like a lawsuit.
Sure.
Which,
I mean, it's tricky because I think hospitals, especially hospitals, they look at everything with the eyes of liability. Right. Right.
Well,
so it's kind of easy for them to enforce that.
True. I don't know like what. So what would it look like without state support for marriage? That you would have to have like an understanding with a hospital that these are the people that
probably, maybe. I don't know. I mean, so many other things have to change.
I think the core of this piece, and it's like literally two sentences long.
It's like
but
3 lines.
Yeah.
Paragraphs.
Great in-depth analysis, guys.
Yeah, solid job.
Thank you, Como. But I think
we appreciate your half a cent on the matter.
Sure. The point that they're coming from is that they don't want the federal government dictating marriage law in Alabama.
Right.
Which, people will say is bigoted, and it might come from a bigoted place. It probably does, let's be honest. But if this theoretically goes to like the big top and it becomes the law of the Alabama land, what does that look like for Alabama? And
sure,
because if the federal government still has a say in marriage law in the form of taxes or whatever.
Right.
What I just don't get this. And
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of having government pulled back from marriage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the idea of government being pulled back from a lot of things.
Right.
But I don't know why Alabama keeps trying this, but they do, and it's interesting regardless of its reasons. It's an interesting concept. I just don't I don't know what the full point of it is, because even if Alabama itself doesn't issue marriage licenses,
every other state is doing
every
it.
other state does, and
Is your marriage going to be recognized?
right, and then Alabama has an obligation to uphold the marriage licenses that
Of other
occur in other
states.
states. Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, what if people just go to Georgia or wherever?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm going to sound like an ignorant West Coaster here. I don't know what borders Alabama.
what states are in the South?
Is Tennessee one of them? Because I know Tennessee borders like 8 states, right?
You're literally in front of a laptop. You can pull up a map.
I don't want to do it. I just don't. I don't.
Listen,
I've got news articles everywhere. I don't need to add that to my screen.
I just think it's an interesting perspective, and even if it does come from a bigoted place, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong or will have wrong consequences.
Sure.
Because Alabama would still be required by federal law to recognize marriages that occur in other states. And
is that the same as gay marriages, though?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep. It's literally the only shotgun thing that you can do across state lines.
I think this is a great opportunity for Alabamans to go on vacations. They'll all just have destination weddings.
I think weddings can still happen in Alabama. I just don't think there are marriage licenses.
Exactly. They can just.
And then how do other states recognize a marriage that has no legal backing from Alabama?
Sure. Oh, they don't. I'm assuming they don't.
I just don't. Marriage licenses just.
I think they're ridiculous.
It seems like doing too much, but people have feelings about it.
Well, people have feelings about a lot of things, and I mean, we're in a weird place right now, so does that make it valid?
Yeah,
it does.
It just expands on the weirdness of the things that are going on right now, because everybody has to do the most
all the time.
Right.
Well, that's in early development, so we'll keep an eye on that. But
I don't think it goes anywhere. I think that, the only reason it was brought up this week is because it literally happens. This was their 4th attempt, or it's like they've been trying it for 4 years.
Right.
So,
all right.
But it hasn't passed.
Well,
speaking of roads to nowhere, I have no segue game. Listen, here's the thing. I have no segue game, and I barely know what I'm doing. But I do know that there's a list of things that we're covering. And
that's fine.
One of them is our names.
Yeah. Speaking of which, yeah. Oh, Jesus.
We don't do this very well.
Today is one of those days. So anyway, before we segue into roads to nowhere.
Or railroads to nowhere.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone, to Booze and Bothered. My name is Sean.
My name is Jonathan.
And we are your hosts, obviously. What are you drinking today?
I think this is a new thing from Lagunitas. It's something
that's
easy.
A can I've never seen before.
Yeah, it's something easy. It's an ale. It's a little tangy, a little delicious, and
citrusy.
Yeah, it comes in a 24 can pack.
Wow. So you got a lot of them.
Yeah, when I got it, I really thought that this was going to be like the West Coast version of, I don't know, Natty Light or something like that, Natty Ice or something, whatever it is, like Miller Light. It's not. It's delicious, and it has a picture of a car and the California beach.
So you took the risk on a 24-pack of beer.
Well, yeah, it's from Lagunitas. I didn't think it was going to be that risky.
No. Okay, fair. That's fair. Great. As usual, I've been drinking a lot of this lately.
The Stone Ripper.
Stone Ripper.
It's delicious.
San Diego Pale Ale. It's good. It's so good. It's The one sentence at the top of the can is a pretty accurate description. A rip and swell of juicy hops.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little. I think it's a little citrusy too. So
It's very
pretty,
piney.
Yeah, yeah, that's the word.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cheers.
Cheers, man. And we're just gonna keep moving on because we
Yeah.
were supposed to do that. I don't know, like 15, 20 minutes ago.
Whatever.
That whole segment of who we are and what we're doing.
Makes the meandering easier to cut.
We meander. Listen, I
Yeah.
love. We're just walking through the woods here.
Yeah.
Just sit with us.
So speaking of roads to nowhere, this is a road to. I mean,
It's a railroad to nowhere.
it's a
is what
railroad
the
to
fuck it
nowhere.
is.
So from the LA Times today, or not today, but
No,
yesterday.
a couple days ago. Yeah.
2 days ago, California bullet train cost surges by $2.8 billion. Quote: worst case scenario has happened. End quote. I think what's funniest about this is the picture is of an aqueduct that I think has nothing to do with this.
Well, that would be typical. Well, listen, they had to put first of all, they had to have a picture of construction.
Have we built this thing? Have we started?
No.
No, of course not. Of course not.
Well,
This is.
that's why they're putting a picture of something that's not the thing, because the thing hasn't been built.
And it looks
at all.
sort of like a railroad.
Yeah, you can kind of believe that this is a railroad.
It's an aqueduct.
It's a viaduct being built next to
I'm sorry, a viaduct
mhm.
next to
It's to extend over the state route 99 and North and Cedar Avenues. Oh, I know where Cedar Avenue is.
No.
Listen, there's no other picture to show. What are you going to do? Show another picture of?
I'm not even frustrated about that. I'm
It's
frustrated.
an animation of
this-
the train that will never be built. Listen, this thing is so expensive. It's not.
Have we spent money on this already?
Oh yeah,
Of course we have.
we've been spending money this whole time on this, and a lot of it's been put into land acquisition at this point.
I'm gonna, as someone in the private sector who builds things, if my company spent so much, even as much as $60,000, and still hadn't even laid anything that remotely looked like groundwork.
Well, yeah, but this isn't the private sector, Sean. This is the public sector where you can
I
spend
know.
money and call it.
That's
A good
why
start.
it's ridiculous.
Well,
This is stupid.
I mean, the common joke is that this will be the most expensive and slowest train if it's ever built, high-speed rail. It will be the most expensive and the slowest high-speed rail on the planet. It's Jerry Brown's. He wants it to be his crowning achievement. It is not going to be that. It's not.
If he's even still alive by the time they've laid the first piece of track.
Well, I mean, Gavin Newsom is probably going to win the election. We do coronations here in California, by the way. It's not quite a coronation. It's like a Soviet bloc. Like you have to serve as the lieutenant governor first. Or in Jerry Brown's case, you have to come back after being
A failed mayor.
the mayor of Oakland. I don't listen. There's no. First of all, there are no victories in being the governor of California.
No.
It is incredibly difficult and tedious and annoying.
And it does not matter what side of the aisle you stand on.
It does not.
It is hell for you.
There's no clear cut forward on
No.
a path to
No.
like success here. This is expensive. It's not done. It's literally, I think we voted on this. I want to say,
I was still working at Starbucks.
I want to say that, yeah, we voted on this around like 2011, 2012, possibly. Nothing's been complete. There's no section completed.
It feels like it's even been before that. There's no section started.
It's delays for, I mean, land buys. It's going to cost an extra the money, just like you look at every single paragraph is like an increase in budget funds, an increase in budget funding or requirements. And the costs are going to jump 35%. Like there's nothing reasonable about this project, and I don't know why we're doing it except to connect San Francisco and Los Angeles, which already share an emotional and mental connection that's worth bullshit.
Thank you.
You know, I don't know any two cities that should be as separated and as much effort that's gone into connecting them. I don't know that anybody in those two cities actually want to be connected to each other.
Right.
Especially when you can just fly there. They both have major airports. And I know I stumbled through that a little bit, but they both have major airports, and they both do consistent travel to each other. There are commuter flights between the two cities.
On the daily.
And you can get to Los Angeles from Sacramento, from Fresno, from San Francisco, from Oakland. Does San Jose have an international airport? No, I don't think
I don't know.
They might. I don't know. There's a bunch of... From Stockton, I think you can get to Los Angeles in a matter of like an hour and a half, if that. Why would you want to hop on a bullet train that's not going to go very fast? It's going to go 80 miles an hour, I think. It's something ridiculously slow like that.
That's not even a bullet train.
Right. Yeah, it's a bullet train.
Japan's
barely.
maglevs go twice, 3 times that speed?
Billions of dollars are going to this. First of all, this is also the same state that wants to do its own universal health care here. And there's no investment opportunity here. Nobody wants this.
No.
Except for Jerry Brown and the people that are being paid to do this.
Right.
Dianne Feinstein's husband has a huge stake in this. So, of course, there's that buy-in.
Right.
I don't understand why we're doing this. I don't understand why we don't have a full rail connection from Amtrak. The Amtrak line ends in Bakersfield.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it doesn't extend to LA and San Diego.
Right.
I mean, there's a project that you could do if you wanted to do one. But I don't know who wants to take the goddamn train.
Right.
And this isn't even like an interesting project that's like, we're going to connect San Diego, Los Angeles, Fresno, Sacramento, the Bay Area, Portland, and Seattle in one giant, and Vancouver.
And you make a great point about who wants to take the train. I mean, I don't know how it is these days, but the last time I read, Amtrak takes losses everywhere except for the Northeast Corridor. The only place they profit is the Northeast Corridor.
I mean, listen, I rode Amtrak a lot growing up because it was the easiest way to ship me back and forth between parents. And I loved it, but I mean, it took like 2.5 hours, which isn't bad.
Yeah, sure.
To get between Lodi and Fresno.
Yeah.
Or Sacramento and Fresno, depending on where I was living at the time. But even then, something goes wrong on the tracks. I'm delayed hours.
Or when I remember taking a train to San Jose, Santa Clara. We hit a car. I was 3 hours late. And we didn't smash this car. Just bumped it. The idiot pulled too far forward.
Mm-hmm.
Just bumped it. Boom, boom. Stuck. Hours.
The last time I rode a train down to Fresno, a train coming northbound, some idiot in a Chevy Tahoe plowed into a train. Like, it was going across an intersection. He was like, I can make it, or whatever.
Right.
And ran into it. And we were stuck in, like, Madera or some bullshit for 4.5 hours.
Right.
I would rather not. The train's fine, but it's not that great. And I would rather fly.
This is a joke.
I would also rather not go to Los Angeles if I could avoid it.
Thank you.
But what else is there? What else is there? We sit there and we have to have our projects, and this apparently is the project that we're doing.
The worst case scenario has happened. Roy Hill bluntly told the rail authorities board as its regular monthly meetings. I hope they weren't surprised.
I'm sure they were. First of all, how do you have a plan to build a train and not get it done? This is goddamn America. Okay? Those evil, vile robber baron capitalists from the 19th century are rolling in their graves at our incompetent people. Look what we can't even build a train.
God.
And the worst part about this is that these little commies that are running the state, these little champagne socialists over here, what's another few $1 billion? It's fine. It's not your money, first of all.
That's why it's fine.
And second of all, just because a bunch of oil and steel tycoons made rail possible and connected this country a century and a half ago with great difficulty, but obviously with a greater focus on accomplishment, doesn't mean that all of these little commies can today.
Yep.
I just don't get it. I don't understand.
They're like teenagers with their parents' credit cards.
If they wanted to do it, they could get it done. I don't think they want to get it done. And I think that Jerry Brown is just far too senile to even know that his term is almost up, let alone know that this railroad is not getting built.
I can't. I just can't.
It's time to put Stalin out to pasture. We need a new direction here. We need to drop this project. Nobody wants it. No one's going to pay for it.
This is a joke. I mean, and then how long do you think the ROI is going to take to break even?
I don't know. I mean, well, you'd have to get people on it.
What a mess.
People don't even want to ride Amtrak here now.
Right.
What makes them?
Right.
What makes anybody think that they're going to want to ride a bullet train that goes 20 miles over the speed limit? It's like wanting to go to Disneyland and ending up at Thunder Valley. Nobody cares.
Right.
Nobody wants to play that game, and nobody wants to do this. I don't understand why we have to try and do this. Just because other technologically advanced civilizations on this planet have bullet trains, we have cars and a lot of freeways. We don't need bullet trains. I don't give a damn about your emissions bullshit, okay?
God, it's so frustrating.
So ridiculous.
They pay taxes for that.
Well,
they can't. I can't.
And literally, there's never been any good news about this thing either.
No.
There's never been any good news. Another 13% increase, another 10% increase, another 20% increase.
I think the worst piece of news that ever came out about it was the fact that it passed the vote. Hailed as a victory. What a joke.
Democracy or this bullet train?
The bullet train.
I was going to say both.
Oh, yeah. True. Fair.
We have to have a bullet train.
It's crazy.
We're not civilized if we don't have a bullet train.
Oh, shut up. Shut up.
Meanwhile, a massive airliner goes right over them.
You know what's great? You know what? You want to do some high speed travel? You know what's a great project? Bring back the Concorde.
I think they are.
Please, God.
There's a new version of it being tested, I think, in Europe. I want
Bring
to say the UK.
it back.
Also, God, I wish I could find this piece. I would have to search for it. There was a piece late in November about electric airplanes.
Yeah.
That was...
Sounds like a great idea.
Well, and this piece was like, one, it cheapens air flight and air travel, however you want to say that, and it could reanimate all of the old and generally unused airports across this country.
Yeah.
And growing up in the Central Valley, every single town has one.
Yep.
Every single town has one. And it would, you want to talk about the market being a democratizing factor. If you can just get on a smaller airplane, maybe with 30 other people, 20 other people or something like that, and everybody goes to Vegas or everybody goes to Portland or everybody goes to Salt Lake and just flies out of Lodi, that's amazing. And then you don't need a goddamn bullet train. Bless it.
Oh, man.
Can't stand this. This is the stuff that I can't stand. I can't stand it when we do this stuff.
So
I don't even have the appetite for Trump's fake news awards.
are we just going to drop it?
Well, the biggest fake news is that this stupid bullet train is going to happen. We've been lied to about this forever.
Right.
The New York, the top 10. Can we just read the top 10 winners?
Yeah. So
Because they're hilarious.
Trump gives out the top 10 fake news awards for 2017. This is from the Daily Wire. Who wrote this?
Who wrote this one?
Not Benji.
No, Benji didn't do this. Ryan Saavedra.
Saavedra.
Whatever. Ryan
Thanks, Ryan.
Saavedra. That's it. Sorry, I was drinking and trying to read it. Didn't work.
No, it's fine. And the top 10 winners.
Paul Krugman.
I'm okay. Okay, hold on. Wait. I hate him so much. I do.
Yeah,
and
but
this is so good for me.
The landslide victory. He said that the president's victory, landslide victory, and the economy would never recover because of it. I mean, I don't exactly have a Murray meme up or anything like that, but the results are in. That was a lie. ABC News' Brian Ross chokes and sends markets in a downward spiral with a false report.
Mm-hmm.
So is Krugman really wrong?
CNN. Good. CNN falsely reported that candidate Donald Trump and his son Donald J. Trump Jr. had access to hacked documents from WikiLeaks.
They never apologized for that either.
No, well, I mean, who are we talking about? Come on.
All they did was just re-report. They were like the next day they were like, this just breaking news. CNN falsely reported earlier that this was a thing, and it's not. We have the truth. I'm like, that was real slick, guys. The Times falsely reported that President Trump removed a bust of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm.
That's so petty.
That is, Washington Post falsely reported the president's massive sold-out rally in Pensacola, Florida, was empty. Dishonest reporters showed picture of empty arena hours before crowds started pouring in.
He tweeted an apology later, I think.
Oh, well, good for him.
CNN falsely editing a video to make it appear President Trump defiantly overfed a fish. Oh, the Japanese thing.
Oh.
That was funny.
Oh, man. Yeah. CNN falsely reported about Anthony Scaramucci's meeting with a Russian, but retracted it due to a, quote, significant breakdown in process, end quote.
Is that just a fancy way of saying we lied? Or we don't know?
Yeah.
Got it. Newsweek falsely reported that the Polish First Lady, Agata Kornhauser-Duda,
I think you got it.
all right, didn't shake President Trump's hand. Why would you lie about that?
I don't know.
Why would
I don't know.
Why would you lie about that?
They're trying to build an image, I guess. I don't know. CNN falsely reported that former FBI Director James Comey would dispute President Trump's claim that he was told he is not under investigation.
Again, idiots. The New York Times falsely claimed on the front page that the Trump administration had hidden a climate report. In his desk? Like, what did he do? Did he like?
Just slipped it into something in his bookshelf. I don't know. And last but not least, quote, Russia collusion, end quote. Russian collusion is perhaps the greatest hoax perpetrated on the American people. There is no collusion.
I mean, that's still an ongoing thing, so we'll find out about that. But
that's 11, by the way. So I think I have a feeling that was some pizzazz added by the Daily Wire themselves. So
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's
Benji's very colorful.
So we're gonna that's ongoing. We're gonna eventually we'll find out. Maybe not ever. Maybe not ever.
So ridiculous. Can we talk about the touchy now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah. So in 2017, we had sexual assaults resurface from years ago. Mm-hmm. 2018 has decided that it wanted to be hip and more current. And so we have a report about Aziz Ansari getting in trouble last year.
Babe.com reported this, or reported the woman's story, and they called her Grace. So endearing. First of all,
oh my God,
reading the article from Babe.com, it's a really uncomfortable encounter. I'm not going to take that away from her at all. That was definitely not the way that you want to have.
That was cringe-inducing.
Yeah, not sexy. I don't think I ever thought of Aziz Ansari as being sexy, but definitely not sexy.
Yeah. It didn't score him any sexy points if that's what he's trying to repurpose he's trying to repurpose his image into more of a Terry Crews.
Yeah, and then kind of out of the, obviously not really out of the woodworks or anything, because nobody's surprised that this kind of blew up.
No, not at all.
But there was like a lot of sides were taken.
Oh yeah, very clear lines were drawn.
Sides were taken, and I think the biggest hitter was God, what's her face from HLN, who came out on and gave a monologue that was very powerful. It was very powerful about, really not shaming this woman, but really bringing this back down to like what I assume she hoped would be a grounded level.
Ashley Banfield.
Yes. And she was very passionate and
incredibly.
Yeah, and her her points struck all the validity points, and it was pretty hard hitting. But the opinion piece that comes from the New York Times by Lindy West kind of strikes back at that. And yesterday, on the 19th, Samantha Bee kind of did the same thing that this article is doing, but obviously in the Samantha Bee way, she hit a lot harder. And it's hard to take a side on this. I can't take a side on this because I can't really decide whether or not. I don't think that this was predatory behavior, but I think it was certainly inconsiderate behavior on Ansari's from him.
Some people might argue that this inconsiderate behavior is predatory.
And that's, it's obviously not for me to decide if it is or isn't.
Sure.
Ultimately, it's for quote unquote Grace to decide. And if it is, like Ashley Banfield said, you should go to the police if you were assaulted. But Lindy West's piece here for the Times is a little bit more of a timeline of actions that have been taken in the feminist movement and by feminists, especially along the lifetime of Aziz Ansari, which follows our own lifetimes.
Right.
And sort of lays out the case that this is unacceptable. You grew up in an era where all of these things were public knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Everything from, she goes deep into it, but, she goes into Susan Brown Miller. She talks about Anita Hill.
Yeah.
Testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee in 1991. Jessica Valenti, Jacqueline Friedman doing a piece called Yes Means Yes. She talks about college sexual conduct rules as they've grown and progressed throughout the years. And she kind of lays the case down really hard. And it's hard. There's no disagreement here that it's almost impossible to find an excuse for inexcusable sexual behavior. And I think in the production meeting for this week, you mentioned that it's kind of that maybe we should have a woman sitting in on this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
or that maybe a woman's perspective should be added. And I agree with that. And I was talking to Alexa about this today, and I talked about that specifically. And she agreed, but she also agreed with the sentiment that I shared, which is, as much as this is a women's issue, women are only 50% of a sexual harassment incident. A woman is.
Right.
The man is the other part.
Mm-hmm.
And male perspectives are just as important to this as an empowerment of the female perspective, I guess you would say, or I would say. And like last night at work, I actually had an incident that really kind of brought this more into like a much more down to earth, less crazy, less, horrible things, not rape and not like bad touch or bad date or sexual at all. I was working with I had one of my coworkers with me, and we were there late in the evening, and I had two male customers come in at the very end. We were just about done. And I stepped out of the store to let her help them, and so that I could finish whatever work needed to be done outside. And she helped them, and I kept an eye on her through the windows just to make sure that everything was cool. And it was, by appearance, which is where things get really dicey, because just because something appears to be normal and fine doesn't mean it is. Because once I came back inside and they left, she was like, those dudes are absolute creeps, and I can't believe their behavior. And I was like, what happened? Well, apparently, despite keeping their distance from her, just side comments. You're so pretty. What's your ethnicity? How old are you? What do you want to do? What do you want to be? Do you not want to answer because of your boyfriend? And it got me thinking, especially when we were ramping up for this topic, that this kind of harassment takes, especially with the Me Too movement, it's not just about rape and sexual aggression.
Right.
Or just kind of the stomping, angry pussy hat feminism. How do you do that to somebody at their job? What possesses somebody to think that it's appropriate to talk to somebody like that who's working? And that's something that I think is just as important as the really bad, quote unquote, super bad stuff, the aggression and the sexual predatory, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is an all-encompassing thing. And, obviously Grace took her encounter with Ansari in a very negative way.
Yeah.
And she had every right to. It's a very creepy experience. But those experiences aren't they come in all different shades and all different levels of aggression, but it's still the same mindset. And it's like, I would never think to talk to a woman that way. Or even as a gay man, I would never talk to somebody that I thought was gay in a way that, I don't know, like an attempt to overpower them or to make them feel diminished like that. And I don't know where that comes from. And people call it society or whatever, but I don't know where that comes from. And it's kind of a validating for this whole movement. It's such a validating realization. Not that this is my first realization of this, because I have never not been in favor of women's empowerment and quote unquote feminism. But it's that kind of behavior that's like built into some people that I just don't. And on any surface level assessment of these guys, they were just normal guys. There was nothing especially dangerous or lurky or creepy about them. They were just normal guys.
Yeah.
And talking to Alexa tonight, she was like, she told me a story of when she was younger and her mom had the conversation with her that this is going to happen sometimes and it's not okay. And I just don't know what to make of that. I think that's incredibly, I mean, how does that set a woman up for success, knowing that she's going to be seen as prey for guys like this, and she's never going to know exactly who the predators are until they reveal themselves? Like, that's an icky thing. And it's an icky thing for women to have to face trying to be at work.
Yeah.
I don't know. And for the most of my working life, my bosses have been predominantly female.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I don't really have I can't imagine having a problem with viewing a woman as being in a position of authority over me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know. I don't know where this comes from. I don't know what comes of the Me Too movement. I think the debate is interesting. I think it's interesting that the Ansari thing divided and created like this, like, really like
two very clear sides of an aisle.
Yeah, and I don't even mind that they're fighting about it, because I think that it means that this is such a murky thing.
Yeah.
Because people definitely took this very differently. People who, I mean, by any assumption, were on the same team here, and they want the same thing. I don't think there's any dispute about that. But I think it's really interesting that the opinions that have been coming out from the feminist movement, from the Me Too movement, have really split on this. And it's not really clear if there's like a louder side or which one's picking up the steam.
Yeah.
Because feminists don't seem to act. Half of feminists don't want to demonize Ansari and they're defending him. And the other half is like, no, this is horrible behavior.
Right.
Regardless of. And I'm not. And the picking on the nonverbal cues, I think, is. I don't know. I don't know what to make of that, because, you know, in production, when we were talking about this and kind of going into how we wanted to approach this subject, I would guess that you would know when your partner that you're having sex with is not interested in continuing the sex. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know.
I mean, they were both drinking, but it didn't sound like they drank a lot by her own account, or had consumed a lot. I don't know. Not that that's an excuse, but I don't know. I feel like this was really creepy, and I don't know if it makes him a predator, and I don't know if it doesn't make him a predator. But the op-eds coming out have really split. And they're really loud. But it's interesting because it opens so many other like perspectives into, just like I was saying about the other night, so many different, there are different experiences of this, and there are different levels to this, and they're all valid to be brought up, and they're all valid to like discuss. And my coworker, she even said to them, she was like, "Why would you wait until my male coworker stepped out to talk to me like that?" First of all, I don't know anybody that would find me intimidating. So I really, I'm kind of average height. I'm not exactly muscular, and I'm kind of obviously lomo. I don't think that two middle-aged guys somewhere around my height and taller, about twice my body weight, maybe 3 times hers, would find me intimidating.
Right.
Or as like first of all, she'd be the first one over that counter to whoop some ass. So they thought about the wrong enemy there. But she was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And this isn't the first time that she's ever been picked on or harassed or however you want to call it at work. And it's so frustrating. I mean, our lady friends have talked about this all the time, especially when bartending.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, it takes some tough skin for them to put up with that and to work it out, and they handle it, I guess.
Especially in that environment.
Right. It doesn't make it okay that they have to handle it, though.
Yeah.
I just don't understand harassing somebody who's trying to make money. You're at work. I mean, that in its own is, I guess, attractive in a certain way, but certainly not to the point of being creepy. Sometimes I don't understand men's actions and stuff like that, and I don't even know if it's a convoluted conversation. I don't know if people know where to begin or where not to, but I'm certainly not mad about either take on the Ansari situation.
Sure.
I think that Lindy West hit some real points here, and I think that she nailed him and nailed that train of thought too. She says, God, where did she say it in here? At the very end, it may feel like the rules shifted overnight, and what your dad called the thrill of the chase is now what some people are calling assault. Unfortunately, no one, even plenty of men who call themselves feminists, wanted to listen to feminist women themselves. We tried to warn you. We wish you'd listen. The point there is that this has been a conversation that's not just happening right now. This has been a conversation that's
for a
been
long time,
generational at this point. I mean, we're well into this. And at what point does the male perspective on pursuing a relationship with a woman change? I mean, you're the one trying to date women. I mean, what are the rules there? I mean, I certainly don't know, but I would hope that nobody's treating my sisters like shit.
Sure, yeah.
And they don't. Both my sisters, one's engaged to, I mean, he seems like a really nice guy, and my other sister's been in a relationship with her boyfriend for years, and he seems like a really nice guy too. But what is the social, I don't know, what is the social thing that happens with dating where men go into creep mode?
I don't know.
Not that I'm asking you.
I mean, I'm sure I've
specifically, but I don't. Who says that? Who talks like that to somebody when you're trying to buy a coffee? You get a coffee and a hot chocolate, and then you ask the
I'd
barista.
say someone who doesn't have social calibration.
Yeah, but it's just, even saying it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, but like, I mean, come on, like,
what's your ethnicity?
This isn't a justification at all, right? But like, there's so many awkward people out there who just for some reason, no one took the time to teach them how to interact correctly. I don't know why. I don't know why they've, especially in today's social climate, and knowing what's going on around the world and the culture shift that is incredibly apparent, that they've never taken their own time to learn different. I don't know why. I really don't.
Yeah.
I see them. I see them all. We live in Midtown. People walk.
Yeah, there are a lot of douchebags.
They talk. They say things. And dude, rare as it is these days in my 30s, I go to the bars. Right?
Yeah.
And I see it happen. I see it happen. They don't. It's weird. It's the weird, it's the weirdest, cringiest thing, and I don't know why they don't think it's cringy. I was sitting at the patio God, a month and a half ago, Christmas time. I'm sitting there. I can't even remember who I was with, but I was minding my own business.
Right.
And these girls walk by, and they're beautiful, and these guys are standing on the sidewalk, and they start talking to them. They're just like. And they say these things. They're just like, oh, well, what are you doing tonight? Oh, we're going to this bar. Oh, can we come with you? And they start halfway following them. And they're like, no. I mean, they're like, not like, no, but they're like, no, that's okay. And are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes my stomach rumble, clearly.
I don't that's so creepy.
Right. And I'm watching this. I'm watching this unfold, and my brain melts a little. Growing up, I was awkward, and I had misread social situations.
Well, I think we've all been there. Generally speaking, I think everybody's been there.
But when someone says no,
yeah,
I'm generally like,
night.
all right, okay, I'll leave you alone.
Sure.
Because what are you gonna? This isn't a sales meeting. You're not going there. You're not getting. Well, why? Well, what's your problem with our product?
Right. Well, I mean, the thing about the encounter between Grace and Ansari, one, both of them were definitely confused.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think she explained why she didn't leave, other than the fact that she was uncomfortable and didn't know how to broach the subject, which, I mean, is not, you can't blame, there's no fault there on her. But even Whoopi Goldberg was like, you just go.
Yeah.
Thank you. Had a nice night. You just go. And that always makes it's very sensible, and it makes a lot of sense.
There's a lot of social nuance.
Yeah,
in a situation like that, right?
And
I mean, I think
on one hand, you want to agree with Whoopi Goldberg in her assessment, and you just leave, especially if he's not threatening you, and there was no indication that he was being anything other than sexually forceful or eager. Which is still inappropriate, but I don't know if this is the right story to have the debate on, because it's so murky. And it's only her side. And by her own admission, a lot of this was consensual, just not desirable.
Right.
And I don't know.
And that is murky, right?
I don't specifically know what a nonverbal cue is, other than assuming that a lack of the body language that says probably not into it. But beyond that, there's no side. I can't pick a side here in the debate.
It's murky. It's murky. It is very murky water.
Between Lindy West and Ashley Banfield. I can't pick a side. I don't know if there is a side to pick. I think that the fact that the two have very compelling. It's just, and nobody wants to be the one to tell Grace. I mean, it sucks that people feel like they have to tell quote unquote Grace to get over it, because that's not the right answer.
Right.
It
is. I mean, given the situation and how we don't know both sides, and some might argue we don't need to. I don't know, but you do make a good point. This
from
is
a PR standpoint, I can't imagine that it would help him to.
Oh
release
no,
his version.
not at all. But
then it's attacking her.
Yeah, then it gets crazy, and then it gets dark, but like darker than it already is. But you bring up a good point, which I don't know if in regards to Me Too and the social conversation, that this is the right piece to choose as a manifesto per se for this.
Listen, I'm a little shocked that this story even exists.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that this has been the divider for this week.
Yeah.
Because this has pulled some people have been pulled onto teams over this.
Yeah.
And
but it's such a hard subject, right? It's such a hard subject,
and this specifically is a hard subject.
Right.
Creepiness in general is not a hard subject. That's
right. Well, just because you and I both know,
respect her work. That I think is the core of that.
Sure, right. But you and I both know that, like, all the women we know have dealt with some bullshit, right? Every woman I know. I don't know a single woman who doesn't have a story.
Yeah, if you're a man and you're friends with women or you're associated with women and you don't know any of these types of stories, you obviously haven't asked, because chances are they have them. Or
those women are figments of your imagination. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
or they just don't want to talk to you about them. Because I don't remember ever not hearing about circumstances like this from my female friends, and I've always had a lot of female friends.
Yeah, I know a ton of girls. And
lady friends, women friends,
whatever. They've all got a story.
Mm-hmm.
They all have something about it.
Yeah,
and it is. God, it's such a murky. It's such a. It's a gargantuan subject to tackle.
It is, and I mean, obviously, we're not going to solve the problem tonight, but it is. It's an interesting dynamic between the two camps, between the Lindy Wests and the Ashley Banfields.
Yes.
And even for people who sit kind of in between somewhere, where they're like, this is creepy. It's kind of douchey on his part, or super douchey on his part. It's not really assault. She should have left. I mean, you can fall any number of ways on this. I think that this thing has blown up to the point where it won't ruin his career, because now
you don't think so?
He's been pulled out of this.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think
we got to wait till season 3 of Master of None, if it ever happens, to find out.
I think that he'll probably lay low for a while. I think that would be a good idea. But I think that this thing has also been pulled so much above him that this is now a debate between people, and he's silent in it. He has no part of this debate. I think that
he's so deep in it, he can't take a place.
And it's the safest place for him to be. To stay in that hole.
Much agreed.
Yeah. Is to stay in that hole and let the women talk about it.
And men. I mean, everyone's talking about it.
I think it's important that men, and this is one of the things that I was talking about with Alexa and Matt. As important as it is to have the female perspective on this, we're using female perspectives.
Yeah.
In our pieces. These are women talking and us discussing it. And I think it's important, as important as it is for women to have these conversations and be allowed to have these conversations openly, it's just as important for men to have these conversations and for men to talk about this and to not hide behind women's skirts, because it's not to go along with the lines of men are the problem. Something is changing. Something has been changing, and Lindy West has a point. this is not a sudden movement. This is not brand new. This did not just pop up overnight. This is generational. And it's been building to this. And the conversation is just, sorry if it's uncomfortable, but it is there. And we are going to have to deal with this. And it's not just a women's issue. This is a social issue.
Sure.
And it requires men to have input on this. Not to be disrespectful to women, but for men to take a grasp on this and really kind of try to understand this.
Yeah.
And it's also important to ask your female friends about their stories. Let your female friends tell you their stories. I guarantee you, if you haven't heard them already, you're going to be woken up a little bit.
Especially if you're creepy. And okay, that's a hard one because most people who are creepy have no idea they're creepy. So, which is why they just go out and they be creepy. It's true. It's a real thing. When I was in high school, I didn't know that I was as awkward as I really was, and I had some weird, creepy moments. I'm positive.
I mean, come on, same.
I'm positive about it. And you talk to your female friends, and it kind of opens up a world for you. And at first, you might be in disbelief if you've never heard these stories. You might be in disbelief, but it's real. It's real. It happens. How about this? If you've got a creepy friend and they don't know they're creepy, find a way to get some stories shared with them.
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be like...
Because I'm pretty sure if you're creepy, you're not friends with many women. So, guy friends of creepy guys, I would say, figure it out.
And women will tell you.
Be a bro. We're done.
Yeah. Have a good night.
I want to thank everyone for listening to Boozed and Bothered this week. Find us on Facebook.
Or have a good day.
Yeah. Facebook.com/boozed and bothered. At Twitter @boozed bothered. And boozedandbothered.com. We're also on SoundCloud. That RSS feed feeds into Google Play and iTunes. Maybe one day it'll feed into Spotify. I'm still waiting to figure that out. But there's a lot of ways to find us. So thank you guys once again. My name is Sean.
My name is Jonathan.
And you guys have an absolutely wonderful night.
Or day.
Rest of your week.
Whatever. And let her work. Let women be the wingman. Don't trust your boys for this.
Yeah.
Let women be your wingman because they will help you out and they will shut you down when you're being weird.
Oh my God. Yes. Can I just okay. Yes. I'm gonna in my crazy days when I was trolling the clubs and yes. Absolute yes. Let women be your wings. They've got, if you've got some good lady friends and they've got your back, they will make sure that you don't Aziz yourself and have to say I'm sorry later. I mean,
they will. They'll check you.
They'll check you right quick. They will check you right quick. I most of the time don't trust male wingmen, and I especially don't trust the ones who say they are good wing. You'll talk to a lot of I'm a great wingman, bro.
Yeah.
Anyone who says that to you is not to be trusted. Any man who says that to you is not to be trusted. They're a terrible wingman. They're garbage. Don't listen to them.
Right.
And I know this from firsthand experience. I have known some great women in my life who have been amazing wings. So
and
stick with them.
they find you those good girls, the girls that are not crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how they source them, but they know the right person for you too.
Yeah, and if you still
intuition,
and if you have a woman wing and you still aren't taking any W's, you might want to go to therapy or something.
Well, I always advocate for therapy.
I do too.
It's great.
So you might want to talk to somebody because I've seen that too.
Just have some conversations, okay?
Yeah,
allow
just
yourself to be open to conversations. It's very important.
Yeah,
and let her work. Don't interrupt her work. How about that? If she's working, she doesn't
Yeah.
even need to know you. She's
And
trying to do a job. She's
That's
trying
let
to-
her. That's like all the way through till after you leave, and don't come back. Like, because some guys, and we know bartenders. We know female bartenders. You and I, and some guys
Yeah,
think
they're not there for your number. They're there for the money.
Yeah, some guys that think that leaving like a $500 tip
You just paid her smud. And,
on
Yeah.
a $60 tab is like a great way to court a woman.
I mean, it's not a bad way. Okay. I wish I'm about to be a bartender. Does this happen? I'll put heels on.
You need to have some conversations with Natalie if you haven't heard those stories.
That's delightful. I'm not even mad. Leave them tips.
She's always giving the money back.
Well, she was raised in the Eastern Bloc.
Yeah.
They don't know about that capitalism. Take that money, girl. Listen, I don't care if she's a waitress, a stripper, or a lawyer. You let her work.
Please.
It's just be respectful.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't care what she's doing. Don't interrupt her.
Don't bother her job.
Not when she's on the clock.
And just,
So
I'm going to be honest here. There are a number of books about body language and social cues and social psychology out there. Go read one. Okay? It is like, and you don't need to be a body language expert who works for the FBI to understand this stuff. Closed body language is a very clear thing. It's an incredibly clear thing. And if you can't see what a set of crossed arms means from a mile away, stay home.
You're so ridiculous.